Morning, folks. Everything new under the sun. Here's a video about things that are too late and things that are coming upon the world very, very fast. This one is rarefoundation.com. Italian court rules mandatory vaccination unconstitutional, fatal side effects. So the argument was, well, if getting the jab saves even one person, then it's worth the risk. But if getting the jab also means another person dies because of side effects, is it still worth the risk? How many do you want? How many do you accept will die from side effects versus how many are saved? And this is, I guess, the mental gymnastics that people are doing. They think, you know what, pretty much it's all safe, and even if it only saves one person from dying from COVID, then it's good. But you got to look at both sides of it. Sicily's court has ruled that Italy's mandatory COVID vaccination obligation is unconstitutional. The court stated that experimental mRNA treatments intended to protect the public from COVID have been shown to cause serious or fatal adverse effects. The court explains that even if such fatalities are rare, a single death is enough to render the mandate unconstitutional. And this is, I think, where the world needs to get to. But we aren't going there. Do you know what? We're going to totalitarian rule, global government rule, and we're going to see that in a second with an article coming out of the WHO. This is a big escalation here. Russia cuts off gas pipeline to two NATO nations in dramatic escalation of tensions, speculation of expansion across Europe. Now, Germany has decided to back Ukraine and to cut off Russian supplies and kind of wean themselves off it over, I guess, the next 6 months or a year. And what did Russia do in retaliation? Well, Russia has decided to start cutting off gas and oil supplies to nations who are going against it. Russia dramatically escalated its standoff with the West over the war in Ukraine Wednesday, cutting off natural gas to NATO members, Poland and Bulgaria, threatening to disconnect even more nations. European leaders decried the move as blackmail. But you know what Putin's doing? He's using the leverage that he has in terms of energy. And the quicker he can leverage that, the better, because it will be pushing nations off Russian oil. But it's going to take them a while to switch about. So now is the time for him to leverage it. And so he's doing what he can here. And this is quite significant. As Russia starts doing this, and how is it going to look over the next 6 months as we head back into fall and winter again? And this is a very slow-moving war. This is not going to be resolved in the next 6 months. So look for a massive energy crisis, 10 times larger than what it already is in Europe. So we're going into global famine, global economic collapse, supply chain collapse, very, very hard times, unlike those that the Western world has ever known in terms of the current population, the current generations that are alive. We've never known any hardship. And so when the tiniest bit of hardship comes, it's going to be Mad Max for us, because we don't know how to deal with anything less than having everything. All right, digital ID. You talk about mark of the beast, the global control of the economic system, the coercion of all citizens of the world to bow the knee and to take the mark. And if you don't, you're going to starve. You're not going to be included in society. Remember, that's what they said about the jab. If you don't get the jab, you're not going to be included in society. And what happened? They implemented rules, vaccine mandates, and you couldn't go to public hockey arenas. You couldn't go to shows. You couldn't go to restaurants. You were discommunicated effectively from society. Now, they've removed those mandates, but that was just a test, a trial period. You bring it in, you see how it goes, you take it back out so that there's not too much public unrest and voices against it. But they're going to bring it back in. You know they will. By the way, the latest news out of China is that the bird flu that is going around the U.S., causing millions upon millions of chickens to be culled, has now jumped to humans in one case in China. look for that to be the next pandemic. And you got to ask the question, if that news is coming out now, what exactly is happening in Shanghai? Is China actually going for zero COVID, or do they actually have another disease? Or is it simply a fight against the U.S. by slowing down supply chains, strangling the supply chains, strangling the economy of the U.S. in retaliation, for sanctions against Russia, because we know China and Russia are pretty much all about working together on this. And it's in China's interest that the U.S. be taken down as the world-leading economic nation, because China wants to rule the world in terms of having the world reserve currency. Well, digital ID coercion, this is coming to a town and country near you. Nigeria blocked 73 million phones as punishment. 73 million Nigerians have had their phones blocked from making calls as punishment for not registering their phones to the National Digital ID database. So all their health information, etc., is on a digital ID database. And now they're going after electronics. They're saying, you know what, if you don't also include your cell phone so that we can track you by cell phone and link that cell phone to your digital ID, this is exactly what the mark, or how the mark of the beast will be used and implemented and will be attached to everything in your life. Then you won't be able to make phone calls unless you do it, because they want to know exactly who's making phone calls. They want to tie everything back to you. Outgoing calls will subsequently be barred from telephone lines that have not complied with the NIM-SIM linkage policy from the 4th of April 2022. Subscribers of such lines are hereby advised that their SIMs and their NINs before the telcos can lift restriction on the lines. The Digital National Identity, NIN, has been in effect for several years in Nigeria, and it is required to get your driver's license or open a bank account. However, only now do citizens have to link their phone SIMs to it. So they had some freedom, I guess, with their cell phones, but now the government's coming down. They're going to crack down on everything. It won't matter what you do. If you go shopping at a store, you're going to be linked to whatever you purchase, and they're also tracking locations with cell phones. That's been happening for years and years. They can get that information if they're not even actively tracking it. It's recorded on your cell phone everywhere you go, and that's linked to your digital ID. And this is what is going to happen in the rest of the world. At the bottom of the article, it says, indeed, Canada is in the midst of its own digital ID experiment, though the government hasn't stooped to this level of coercion. Alberta and Ontario have already rolled out digital ID, and Saskatchewan shelved its plan to roll one out. Saskatchewan MLA Jim Ryder admitted the negative public feedback was one of the reasons for pausing it. They're going to implement this. They're going to require this. This is going to be what the mark of the beast is going to be like, in small fashion, in limited fashion. Mark of the beast is going to require you to attach your digital ID to every single thing you have. You want a driver's license, you have to take this mark of the beast. You want a cell phone, you need to get this mark of the beast. You want to buy groceries from the store, you need to get the mark of the beast. They're going to completely cut you out from the economy if you don't do this, and you're going to be a right-wing conspiracy theorist, and you're going to be an outcast if you don't do this. Indeed, even to point of it being illegal, because if you what are you going to do if you can't drive, if you can't hold a job, if you can't buy food? You're going to have to resort to illegal activity. You're going to resort to effectively doing things outside of the law, stealing food or bartering outside of the law, which would require at that point in time a digital ID, a mark of the beast system to be able to buy food. So everything you're going to be doing at that point in time is going to be illegal. That means you're going to be put in jail because you don't have the mark of the beast, right? So this is not going to be easy. You're not going to be able to go to your bunker or whatever and live 6 months, 3 years without the mark of the beast and not have any significant consequences, even to jail, having to do things illegally if you don't get it, because all the laws are going to require you to have this to do anything, and even to death. Bible describes many people even will die who do not receive the mark. This is Daily Exposed. This is dailyexpose.uk. Italy announces rollout as dystopian social credit system. So just like China, if you're not doing what the government wants you to do, what public health wants you to do, if you're not doing something in the interest of all the citizens of the country, if you're doing something that they've deemed illegal, if you're spreading hate speech on social media, saying that the Bible says things against homosexuality, for example, if you're saying these sorts of things, that's hate speech. Your social credit score is going to decrease. Your actions and your movement are going to be limited. So in Italy, we will start the pilot project for the city. At the center is the virtuous citizen, the one who, for example, separates waste well or does not waste energy. Oh, do you have a side-by-side or a dirt bike or a motorcycle, something extra than your regular transportation? Do you even drive your own transportation? Maybe you should get on public transit, because if you get on public transit, that's going to increase your virtuous citizen score, right? Or uses public transit, does not take fines, or is still active with the Bologna welcome card. The municipality says these people will assign you a score as part of a circular reward with economic benefits. So, by way of money, they're going to assign you a score, and there's going to be economic benefits for those who comply with what the government says. Oh, are you a protester against government rules and regulations? Your score is going to go down. Maybe you won't be able to buy food as cheaply as those who comply, right? It's going to get really, really hard for you. They're going to put their thumb on you and put pressure on you to comply with whatever the government wills. This is a scary situation. All right, and finally, you talk about world government control. The Bible describes exactly that with the mark of the beast and the Antichrist. Global control of your health, of the economy, of the governments of the world, a global consolidation of power, and you will have to bow the knee to a single world leader at one point. This is evolve.com. World Health Organization is preparing vote to what? To strip the U.S. and 194 other nations of its sovereignty and give them total control of the world over your health. That's right. How is the Antichrist going to come into power? It's going to come through a health emergency, I believe. And it's going to get so bad, all nations give up their sovereignty, and it's going to start with health, I think. And once the countries give up their health sovereignty, they're going to give up the sovereignty of laws to, world court, etc. And it's just one piece along the way of all nations giving up all their sovereignty to global groups like World Economic Forum, the World Health Organization, etc. So on May 22nd, the World Health Organization will vote on whether or not to strip 194 nations, including the United States, of their sovereignty. As part of the global reset, the WHO is aiming to alter a treaty that would give them global control over human health. In the new video, Pulse Joe Martino interviews Shabnan Palessa Mohammed, a member of the steering committee for the World Health Organization, who points out that the treaty gives the WHO an inordinate amount of power to make decisions in sovereign countries as to how people live. Oh, you don't like the mask mandates? You can't vote for a leader who is against it anymore because a global leadership is pushing mask mandates or vaccination or whatever the next public health thing is. Lockdowns, who would be able to mandate lockdowns, I guess, at that point, right? And mandate anything else they deem is required for the good of society. And it doesn't matter if you agree with it or not. And you're going to go to jail. You're going to be breaking laws. Your country will not be sovereign anymore. So inordinate amount of power to make decisions in sovereign countries as to how people live, how they deal with pandemics, from lockdowns to mandates over treatment. In an open letter, the WHO's Pandemic Treaty World Health writes in part, the proposed WHO agreement is unnecessary and is a threat to sovereignty and inalienable rights. It increases the WHO's suffocating power to declare unjustified pandemics, imposing dehumanizing lockdowns, and enforce expensive, unsafe, ineffective treatments against the will of the people. This is coming. The people, even if people are against it, they're going to comply. They're not going to do anything. They're not going to rise up. The convoy, the trucker convoy, that was the last gasp. That was the last chance for people to stand up and say, we would prefer free choice over mandates. And what did most of Canada do? They sat on their hands. They did nothing. They didn't help in any way. They said, no, we're going to allow the government to dictate everything we do. We enjoy it. We just want to be safe. We just want to live our lives. And we don't care how much power the government has. That's effectively what they said. And they got it. Canada is in a bad state now with a government that is happy to take control of all aspects of our life and happy even to do whatever the WHO wants, etc. So there's going to be no slowdown in the integration of Canada into the WHO. And this vote, I think, even if it doesn't pass, I think ultimately the WHO will take control as part of one body for human health over the globe, and they will start implementing their rules upon us. And we won't have a say in it because our leaders agreed to do this. And so our police, our CMP, all the other police forces will then be obligated to enforce the ruling of the World Health Organization because the government, the elected officials, got us into it, and the citizenry did nothing. It's a scary situation, and you can easily see that we are on the way to global control, an antichrist figure, a world-leading government, a world government that controls everything you say and do, even down to your health, forces a digital ID on everybody, and if you don't have that, you will be excommunicated from the economy, from the community, from society. You will be illegal. You will be living illegally when that comes around, and you will be hunted. You will be put in jail, and you know what people will be doing on social media? They will be cheering on the police when they hunt you down, find you for not complying with what the world is saying, what the government is saying, and they will cheer your entry into the jails and whatever other punishment is devised. They will say, great, these people aren't complying, these are idiots, they're not helping the citizenry to stay safe, and they're disobeying the laws of the world community. They deserve to go to jail. This it's unbelievable, folks. It is unbelievable what's happening. This is going down. No one's doing anything about it. Everybody's watching Johnny Depp and Amber Heard. They're not paying attention to what's happening in the world and how fast this is going downhill and how fast you and I are losing our sovereignty, our freedoms, and we're going to social credit score. This is big news, folks. I'm going to leave there for today. Thanks for watching. Be prepared. It's going to get a lot harder, folks. We ain't seen nothing yet.